We now come to the second tutorial, where I will be talking some more about how to create a good layout, what are the things that you need to pay attention to, and things like that. So I'm going to start with a double page. Now I have the single page up here, that's the cover. We're not going to talk about that for now. And and I have the layers open here because I'm going to be opening and closing these things to show you different stuff at the beginning. Later I'm not going to do that. Now we have our blue content stuff. These are our columns, which I have placed inside the the appropriate areas. So column, gutter, column, gutter, column, gutter, like that. So I have 4, or rather I have 6 that are made out of 5 columns, and then I have one here in the middle, and I have one here in the middle. And this, I'm very sorry to say, is a very common mistake that a lot of people make when they first start to work with layout, which is that they place things that are almost the same size at almost the same distance on an area. So now if I were to open this, then we could see what this would look like with text or images. Let me just close this and actually also zoom in a little bit. So this is a very common mistake when people just assume that they can just put, and let me just close the blue boxes here so that we look at it like that. So we have 2 pictures, they are right in the middle of the page, they are at an equal distance, almost equal distance, top and bottom. I could also just move this down a little bit to make it exactly equal from the top and bottom. Same sized fonts, which would be the paragraph fonts, and then there's a little bit up here, which then sometimes they make the mistake of thinking that might be a good place for a headline. So let me just delete that and open this, and then you will see what I'm talking about here. So here is their idea of a headline, and here is their idea of how to put things on a page. And that, of course, never works, because in order to be able to put together a good layout, there are 2 things that we need to pay attention to, and one of them is hierarchy, and that does not just happen by one headline and then one small sized paragraph text, but then the second one, which is equally important, is grouping or clustering, because things that relate to each other, and all of the stuff presumably relates to each other, needs to be placed close together, and also needs to be placed in such a way that the most important thing is close to the center, and then the other things group themselves around that primary element. So now if we scroll down here, what I have done is I have actually taken a layout that we had looked at in class, actually, from something I found on Pinterest. And incidentally, I am going to put the link of the collection that I created for editorial spreads on Pinterest under this video as a link, and I would like you to all go and examine whatever I have there very, very carefully. And so actually let me just go there real quick and show you what it is that I'm talking about. It is this one right here. So and the one that we were looking at, I think was the one here, or was it a little bit further down? Let's see. Yes, it was this one. Okay, so I have taken these 2 spreads, and actually when I made this I made a small mistake. I kind of forgot that these belong to 2 different spreads, but I put them together like as if they are on one spread, but doesn't really make a difference. What I have done is I have replicated what that person did in that layout almost exactly, as far as I could do it. And when you look here, when you make a comparison between this here and this here, it immediately becomes obvious that what they have done is they have placed things close to each other. Let's open the guides and look, I just need to align this exactly. Hold on. Why can't I do this? because this should be aligned. Everything should always be aligned. Now it's aligned exactly. So you need to pay close attention to that. And I just quote another one here, which I'm also going to fix, just to show you how important this is. I did this in a hurry and I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and of course it should never be like this. So let me just zoom out to the full size here. In fact, let me zoom out one more so that we see it a little bit further away. Now we have used the columns. Everything is inside the columns. Here there's a little bit sticking out here, but the pictures, the headline, and then there's another headline here. There are actually two headlines. When I put those two spreads together, I ended up with two headlines, and then I have a subhead here, which is then now an important element of the hierarchy, because we have number one headline. See, it's in a prominent location here, and everything else is grouping itself around it. And actually, technically, this, for a headline, this is not a really good place. They have that, and I replicated what they did exactly. But actually, the really good place for the headline is right here, and because everything is grouping itself around it. The less important elements are grouping themselves around the most important element, and here it's kind of like left alone by itself at the top. So what I would actually probably do is, in this case, I would move this to the top and actually also move it down closer to the picture, and then I would put this one here, because here it actually has a more favored place, because the picture and the text are grouping themselves around it. Now this grouping around is a really important thing. So your primary element, your primary typographic element is your headline, and that should always be somewhere where other things are kind of flocking around it, are coming together around it, and are pointing to it in a certain way. Now, something that you may notice is that this text here is going over the gutter here and also here. However, actually it's correctly placed, because the box of the headline is actually aligning itself exactly to the column. So don't think that I made a mistake. I didn't. This space here is actually exactly right for it. It ends at the last column, not a gutter, but because of the way of the point size of this text and of the way that the sentence is constructed, it looks like as if it's going outside. We don't notice that when we close the guides, but when we open the guides, the more observant among you may have noticed that this is coming out a bit. But the important thing is that the box itself, the typographic box itself, actually stays exactly on the column's edge, not the gutter, but the column. Okay, so now what I want to do, before we get there, now the reason why, let's see, let me just open this as well. Now the reason why this layout here is working, and the ones that I'm going to show you that I made are working as well, is because of this right here. Now, on a layout, on a brochure or a magazine, editorial content, in other words, the most important area of a double page is actually this area right here. It's the right-hand page, and it's the middle. Why is it like that? Because when we flip open a magazine or a brochure, the first thing our eye sees is the right-hand page, because that's the way we actually turn the page. Now, this is obviously in cultures that have left-turning pages and left-to-right text. Now, if this was in an Arabic culture, or let's say Israel, then it would be different, because their books actually open from right to left. Left to right, and so in that case it would be this area here. But in our culture, because we are using Latin text, which reads from left to right, the most important area is right here. The second important area is the one that is directly across from it. So the central part of the layout, this part here, is the most important area. And then we get the middle of the pages. not the edges, not the center here, but the middle of each individual page, and then those are number 3 in terms of hierarchy. And this person here knew about that, so see, everything is in the center. We are not seeing the right hand page here, but here we are seeing the right hand page, and they have the headline at the top and not at the middle, but since they have a lot of empty space, this is actually working out just fine. And then here again they are using the central part of the double page spread, not the top and not the bottom. They do have the headline on the left, but that can happen. I mean, that's not the end of the world. What is important is that they are sticking more or less consistently to the middle of the page, and that is something that you should bear in mind as well. The middle of the page, the area here, I mean, this could be wider, of course. I mean, I could make this wider. Hold on. So let's say I can just extend it like that. Obviously, I just put down those. Whoops. Let's see. So this here could also go up. That wouldn't make a big change. But it's always the middle. You always have to think about it in terms of the middle, and never the top left, especially. The top left is important with other kinds of stuff, with manuals or with scientific papers, articles that get published in scientific journals and stuff like that. There, yes, the top is important, but in editorial design, which is brochures and magazines and annual reports and things like that, then we are always concerned about the middle. Now, we are going to be doing a branding manual after this, and when we get to that branding manual, things will change, because in a branding manual, actually the top of the page will be more appropriate for the headline, and that is because manuals have a very different usage from magazines or brochures. Manuals, kullanım kılavuzu in Turkish, in other words, with those, people know what they're looking for, and they expect a certain kind of arrangement on the page, where the headline is at the top and then the information comes below that, because it works a little bit like a scientific paper in a way, but in a magazine or a brochure, it's not like that. The content changes drastically from page to page, and so what the eye expects is kind of like the central area here. Okay, so now let's just continue, and I have made, in fact, at this point I'm going to close this layer palette. I no longer need it, and then we also just close this for a second. What I have done is, if we scroll down, I have made a number of spreads. They're just basically copied and pasted from one another to show you different kinds of things that you can do when you are putting together a layout. So we have things like drop caps, we have insets, we have PNG images, which I will talk about towards the end. We have highlighted text, we have text boxes, and how to place text inside big photographs, photo captions, colored boxes that you can use together with text. So let's just start looking at all of this. Okay, now here's the headline. It's in the right hand center of the page. This is a subhead. This is the paragraph entrance, which is a little bit smaller than the other one, and I have separated the headline and the subhead with a stroke, with a very thin 0.75, I think the value is. Let me just check. Yeah, 0.75 with a stroke, because these two things actually really belong together, and then this stuff belongs together, because this is the paragraph entrance and this is then the continuation of the paragraph text. However, here on the top left, I also have something that we call a spot, which is usually something that is taken out of the text itself and then placed separately as a kind of like a highlight. And then here I have a caption. And a caption is something that usually accompanies, well, not usually, always actually, sorry about that, accompanies a photograph. It's an explanatory text for an image, or a chart, or a table, or something like that, where you explain what is actually going on here. So it's resim alt başlığı, we call this in Turkish. But what I wanted to do is I also wanted to draw attention to this caption, and I also wanted to draw attention to the spot. So I also put two strokes on top of them. These strokes are both of them 4 points. Yes, the weight is 4 points, and with this one it's 4 points as well. So I'm being consistent. That's very important. I don't do this arbitrarily. I don't make one of them 3 points and then the other one 4 points. I make them exactly the same, and that way we achieve consistency. Now, an important thing to do, which is not happening here, here the images are almost the same size, and also on their layout it's like that, as you can see. Now here they've done it differently. Here they have one big image, and then they have two that are almost the same size, and then they have a third one, well, a fourth one, but it's third in the hierarchy, that is a little bit smaller than that, and that is actually the more correct way of doing it, because what you should always try to do is you should try to create objects, pictures or text or whatever, that are different from each other in size. So one small one, one big one is a much better thing than two that are of equal size. So this is big, this is small, and then the same thing also applies to all your text elements. But then also another important thing is that when you group things, so this and this and this, these are actually kind of like a cluster, and then these two are a cluster, and then the caption and this thing and this and this and this, actually all of them are a cluster. Then you place some things closer to each other, and then you move certain things further apart. So you have a lot of space here, for example, and that makes your layout much more easy to read. Now that's the big issue. The big issue is that with a brochure or a magazine, we want to draw the person's eye to a certain focal point, and then from there start going in the correct order, the correct direction. So we want them to see this first, and then this second, and then we want them to maybe go over here and look at the images, and then maybe read the spot, and then come here and start reading the actual text. Now, what happens if you do it in the other way, like I was showing you in the beginning? Here there is no direction. The person who looks at this page would not know what it was that they were supposed to look at first, because everything is of equal value, and everything is spaced exactly almost from each other, so we don't get directional axes. So you may say, yeah, but there's a headline here, wouldn't they look at that one first? Possibly, but then what would they do next? Where would they go next? This headline, the way it's placed, is not telling them to go here or here or here or here or here, or look at the picture or anything, because everything is equally spaced and everything is the equal size. But then when you come here, which is the layout that I replicated, it's not mine, then it's different. Then I change this to this, and I think this is a better location for it. But the person who looks at this layout here will immediately know to look here, because this is the central right hand area. So of course there are two of them here, so that's confusing. So what I would actually probably do is I would change this exactly to that value, so that's 17 points. Let's see. Yeah, so if I, and then hold on, 23, so let me make that 23 as well. Then it becomes even easier, because this is bigger, and I could make this even maybe a little bit bigger. So it's now actually jumped, so let's do it like that. So now it would even be more obvious. And what would make it even more obvious is if I deleted this altogether and only had this and this, because then there's absolutely no doubt that this is the focal point. This is number one. We need to look at this first, then the images, then this here, then this here, then the images, and then start reading the text. Now let's go back to here. So we already looked at that. Now I just duplicated the same layout. Nothing much has changed, but just to show you the different kinds of things you can do. You can add colored boxes. Now remember, we had made a color palette. So here I'm calling this earth colors. So this is actually this color. It's telling me that right here. Now I have picked a neutral color, more or less neutral color, not a bright blue, but like a nice neutral, low saturated kind of blue or turquoise or whatever, because it kind of goes with all the colors here, but also because I don't want the colors to overwhelm my layout. That's quite important. These big color fields, I don't want them to overwhelm the layout. Now, photographs should be beautifully colored and crisp and clear and sharp and all that good stuff, but when it comes to color fields, which can be very effective, don't overdo it. Don't go for bright reds and yes, there are many examples where people are using those, but then when they use them, the entire layout gets, or the design rather, the whole design system gets shaped to that. So everything else has to follow that lead of that bright color, and unless you want to design something like that, which would not be appropriate for the kind of brochure that you are making, because it's just it's revolving around the branding that already exists, then stick with the neutral colors. Don't go overboard with colors, people. Okay, but everything else here is the same. Nothing has changed. It's just that color. But then I have a second one where I also added a dark gray, and then I made all of this text white, and I removed that stroke because the stroke would now have become an like kind of unnecessary, and also because I am also putting the paragraph entrance now, I'm grouping that now together with the headline and the subhead, because I'm putting all of them into the same area. So that's also quite important. Now this box here has become an informational container, and the things that get put inside it would actually be things that would go together. So at that point the stroke becomes superfluous now. So let's continue to the next one. So again, same design, nothing much has changed, but what I have done now is I have actually added a big photograph, and if I just turn this on, the way that I have done this photograph is I have placed it exactly in the middle of the page. Remember, I had put a master I had put a guide on the master page, so let me just go back and remind you of that. So there's a guide exactly in the middle of this page, and when I need to drag it from the outside, not from the inside but from the outside, and then it will snap exactly to the middle, and then that will be seen on all the pages. All the pages will show that. Okay, so I think we were here. Yep. Now, so I have a huge big image which covers the entire top part of the design. Let me just close these. And so using these big images that you can actually embed text into can be a very effective way of putting together a layout. However, when you do that, make sure that you have images that have big neutral areas where you can actually put text inside. So don't try to do something like, for example, if I were to do this, okay, then now all of this is going below the text, and that now becomes a huge big problem because we can no longer read the text. So always make sure that, and there are plenty of images like that, especially on FreePic, where they make a point of having images like that for graphic designers, for the usage of graphic designers. So make sure that you have an image that actually allows you to place your text without any aggravation whatsoever. You know, it should just be clearly readable without having to do anything to it. Or you could, of course, alternatively maybe have a very crowded image and then place a box around underneath this text, and then that might be a way of doing it as well. But my advice would be, even that can very often end up becoming an over design. My advice would be to actually find images that are suitable for putting text on them in such a way that there's no trouble at all reading them. And then I also have a small one right here, which is like a caption, where there would be absolutely no problem of reading what it is you are meant to read. And let me just click outside here. Then this is still exactly the same, nothing has changed. But now, of course, I have one huge image and one small image, which has actually, and this difference, this big difference between this and this in terms of size, makes everything become even more effective, and also makes it much easier for the person who is looking at this, who's reading this, to know that this is actually the headline, this is the subhead. So I start from here, go here, here, then here, and then the caption. So we have very good directional axes in terms of placement for people's eye to actually take a good route around this page and see it very clearly, or be able to read it very clearly in the correct order. Now, the thing that I have done here is, again, it's the same image, nothing has changed, but I did kind of, it's not exactly what I was talking about in the one before, but I placed boxes behind the texts. Now, what we call these insets, we call these inset elements, inset, and here what I did is I just placed a white box, and then the headline and the subhead stay inside that box, and then here we have the paragraph, and then the paragraph entrance, the caption, and like that. Now, when you place these boxes, this can actually become quite tricky, because now here's the gutter, and then here's the gutter, and what I could have done is I could have actually made this box like this, and that would technically have been correct, because I have my head, I have the text inside the gutters and then this outside. However, when you look at it, you will see that it becomes too tight. It doesn't look good any longer, so you really want to open it up, and then when you open it up, you actually use one extra column so that you have enough space, and then you could maybe even make this a little bit higher. I left it like that, but this is another way of placing text inside an image. But don't, please don't try to make this transparent or something like that. Well, I mean, it's up to you, obviously, what you're gonna do, but let me just show you what I mean. So if I were to do something like this, and then take these, and then I would need to move them up because they're much too close to that edge, like this maybe, it's kind of going to take away from the effect. It's going to stop being as clean as it was. So one of the things, I mean, this is obviously my preference, I mean, me as a graphic designer, but my preference is always to keep things very, very clear, very distinctly separated from each other. So I'm not a very big person for these kind of transparencies or semi-transparencies and things like that. But that's just my advice. I mean, up to you, of course. Now, with this one here, I did something different. Now what you do in InDesign is you have two little areas right here. Follow my mouse, and I'm just below the color thing now. Now there's a T, and the color, when you click on T, the color will only affect the text, okay? But then when you click on this here, then that will affect the container. So you can put a color behind the text, okay? So let me just show you. This is black, but I could have made this green, for example. I'm going to go back to black. But as you can see, now let me just open this. Now this is exactly on the column. It's not in the gutter. I put this exactly on the column, but then when I use boxes like this, let me just close this, then the text actually needs to get narrower. We need to create some extra space, a padding around the text. But again, let me open this. The actual text box is right here. So this has a padding, and the way we do that is we go to Object, Text Frame Options, and what we have here is all of this here has a padding of 10 points. So let me just link this, and hold on. Yeah. Now it should be correct. I got confused. Now if I make this 0, oh no, it's the other way around. Now as you can see, this padding on the left hand side has disappeared completely, and now the text is actually butting right up against the column where it's actually supposed to be. So let me go back and do this again. So I guess I need to do it like this: 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so now all the padding is gone. Actually, I did do it correctly. I just thought I had made a mistake. The reason why I'm not seeing it like that is because of the rag. Now I want to go back and correct this, because I want the box to touch the columns, but I want this to stay inside. So what I want to do is I want to make all of it 10 points, okay, so that I have the space around it and my text is actually inside. Okay, I think I explained this in a slightly complicated way. I hope you got it, but anyway, that is how you place text inside a box. Now let's just go back here and let's do it with this as well. Okay, so I'm going to click on this and go here, and let's see, let's make this black as well. Okay, now I've made it black, and let's just come in, and again, object, text frame options, and now this is a very big point size, so this would probably 10 points would not be enough for this. Let's just take a look. Well, maybe, but we've now lost some of the thing, so it would actually have to be like this, so that we have both the things, and then we would be doing the same with this one here. So look, it's sitting right on the column. The box is sitting on the column, the text is now inside. What we could do with this one is we could maybe align it to the to the text, in which case it would come down like this. Let's see, does this look good? No, it looks terrible actually. So let's also fix this one right here. Again, I would go here, here, black, and then open it up, back up to what it's supposed to be, and then again, text frame options, 10, and then probably separate them a little bit so that they don't look all squished together. So you could put boxes behind. Now let's just change this photograph to show you a reason why we would be doing it like that. We would be doing it like that when we have a photograph where there's a lot of busy background, such as, for example, let's say this one here, where if we had let's see, so I'm actually going to reduce the size of this a bit and then move it over a little bit and maybe move it down. So if we have a photograph like this and we want to put text on it, then this would probably be a good way to do it. But like I said, a better way, a much better way, is to actually find photographs where you don't need to do this, where you can just go ahead and place your text white exactly the way it was when I started showing you this. And here this would need a box as well, of course, so let's just do that as well. Let's pretend that we're doing something real, and then again this would need the padding. And when we check the guides, everything is exactly correct, everything is on the columns, no problem there. So this might be another way of doing it as well, depending on the kind of image that you have, and I don't know, possibly maybe this text frame is a little bit too wide. So if we were to make it, let's say 6, and then change all of these as well, would that look better? I'm not sure. and then probably we could narrow this down a bit and narrow this down a bit, and this might help a little bit, but it's kind of like a stopgap measure. One thing you could also of course do, now that I'm looking at this, is you can unlink it, and then from the left and the right you could give it more space. So 10 10, but less from the top and the bottom, so that you have narrower strips, which might make it look better. So let's see, how does that look? Well, it looks a little bit better, but like I said, I'm not crazy about it. I would always prefer to have something that does not need this much fiddling around, that is just going to look good automatically. Okay, now let's continue. So here's the other one, and this for me is a better solution for sure. Now here I did something else which I want to show you, which is a nice little trick. Now you can, in a paragraph entrance or a subhead, but especially a paragraph entrance, you can have little accents like this. So again, to attract attention, to draw the eye. And the way that I made this one here is, when you go to paragraph. Now if you go here and you have all the paragraph stuff and all the character stuff, that's not going to give you what you actually need. So you need to go here and go to type and tables, and then activate these individually, and then put them here on the sidebar. So I have this here, and then when you click on the hamburger menu, then you have paragraph borders and shading. You get this box here. And what I have, hold on, I hadn't selected this, so now I have it selected, paragraph borders and shading. And what I have here is I have created a stroke to the left hand side of this little paragraph here. So on the left I have 4 points, okay, and then all of these are 0. I unlinked it, and on the left I made it 8 points, so it goes out 8 points. Now if I make this bigger, it'll get bigger. The gap will get bigger. Obviously you don't want it to get too big, you want it to still belong to the paragraph, but and then the width of the stroke is still 4 points. I'm being very consistent with those 4 points, but then you also need to do something else, which is let's see, hold on, you need to bring this in. And where did I do that? I'm pretty sure I brought it in like this. Oh no, sorry. Here it is actually at 0 because it's aligned to here. What I had tried before that, which is why I got confused, let me just go back to here, and the offset I made 0 so that it was actually exactly, well, I made it -2 points so that it went exactly on the edge of the thing. I tried that out, and then what I had to do is I had to actually move this one in like so, so that the stroke was actually parallel to the edge of the paragraph, but that didn't work out as well as the other one. So let me actually just redo it, because this I think looks much more effective when it's a little bit on the outside. So that's another neat little trick you can use to accentuate things. Then here I have made highlighted text, which I actually like a lot, and I have used it a lot on my own website and places like that. Now it is not that automatic and easy to actually do this in InDesign. There is a way to do it, and I'm going to show you what that is, but it isn't that easy. Now for that you need to enable the character thing. Again, you go here and then you activate this, and then you dock it to here, so it's docked here, and then you actually check underline. Hold on, just missed it. and you give it the underline. So the underline is right here, but then what you do is you click on the underline options, which are right here, and then you make the underline fat as you want it to get, and then you play around with the offset. So if I raise it, it'll go really high, so you need to just carefully look at exactly where you want it to go. So this is I made the weight 14 points because the text is 13 points, so I wanted it to be a little bit wider than that. And then the offset I made exactly, well, I looked at that very carefully to see exactly where it would fit, and it turned out that it fits exactly, not at -4 but -5 points, so I checked that. So that, and once I had done that, then I went to the character and I changed the color of the type from black to white, so that I actually get the underline. But then what I also did is, if I ever want to use this again, then I also want to have a character style. So what I did is, you just take this, you click on edit, and then you just rename it. It doesn't say make new style or anything like that. I'm not going to show you how to do that. You can figure that out very easily, and then you just give it a new name, highlight black, so that actually you have that as a character style. So wherever else you want to apply that, you can just go you can just go yeah, well, it did it already. You can just apply it to wherever you want it to go. Now, so that was the other thing that I wanted to show you, and now let's come here. So what I have here now is, I have a big inset, and you don't necessarily always have to use insets on big images. They can be very effective on small images as well. So actually, let's try one out right now. So let me just take the rectangle tool, make it white, and let's say I want to put an inset here into this image. Like, I mean, obviously I have a text underneath it, so if I were to do that, I would maybe need to delete this or whatever, but you know, it's always good to align things to the center, or rather, let's see, to align it to a column. So I have aligned it to this column, and then basically what I could do is I could just take some text and then just put it right in here. And sorry, you don't align the inset box to the column, you align it to the gutter, obviously, because the text itself is going to get aligned to the column. So let's see, if let me come out one more. So it's a nice way of accentuating photographs. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be with a big photograph. It can also work very well with a smaller photograph. So that's what I did here, and I have that little rule that I'm using also as a system element. So if I have them in a lot of different places, that creates a system. So I have one here, I have a paragraph entrance, I have the paragraph, then I have everything here, but then here I also have a drop cap, and drop caps are really nice things to use. And let's take a look at how that is done. Now for that, I will go to one of the other texts which are kind of like untouched, let's say. Now, one important thing with the drop cap is that you need to actually have a letter which is good for that. So the letter F, for example, would probably not be very good for it. The letter G is good for it because it's a nice round letter and it'll give us a nice form. The C would be nice, the U would be nice. So, but let's do it with the F first, and so that we see what happens. Now, if you would follow my mouse, if you go here, there is a little area for the drop cap, okay? And this gives you the number of lines that you want this letter to actually drop. So 1, 2, now it's 2, 2, 3, 4. So I made it 4. And then, now the text here is coming really close to the letter. You have another one here, so follow my mouse. So that's a V/A, and that is going to give you the distance of the paragraph to the drop cap. And then what you can do is you can just change the font weight. So this here is very skinny, so I probably wouldn't be using that. I would probably be using, let's see, Barlow semi-bold maybe. Do we have semi-condensed black? Would be too fat. Where's the bold? Where's our bold? Oh, it's right here. Okay, so here's the drop cap. But as I said, the F is not a really good letter for that because it will give us a lot of weird space. So I'm actually going to go Control Z, 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 and do it with another one, with a better one. So with the U again. Now, sorry, forgot to select it. 3. Let's leave it at 3, just for the hell of it. And now let's open this up a bit, and then again let's make this Barlow bold this time, not semi-condensed but regular. So this looks quite nice because the letter has that form that actually allows a drop cap to actually function. The F wasn't functioning as well, as you saw. So when you make a drop cap, you need to be careful about the letter that you are actually making the drop cap with. Again, to repeat, not all of them will work equally well. And the G is one that will work especially equally well because it's a very, very nice glyph which has a very nice negative space, so this will look especially good. Now, let's continue to the last thing that I want to show you, which is actually using PNG images or any kinds of shapes really, but PNG images would be the best thing to use. Now, as you know, these are transparent, and when you put them on a layout, and if you want text to wrap around them, that's very easy to do. You just select the image, and then the text wrap thing is right here, but I've docked it to here. And then if you go to the first one, it will just create a box. So you don't want that with a PNG image. You want the third one, which shows you a round thing inside the text. And then from here you can wrap it to both right and left sides. So I'm wrapping it both to this side in this case. As you can see, everything has moved over, but then I'm also wrapping it to the right side. And then, but you can do it just the left side or just the right side, depending on how you want to do this. So this is just the left side, just the right side. I want both left and right. And then from type, you just select alpha channel. And that's basically all you need to do. However, it's not quite so easy because you need to also be careful of whether your text is left aligned or right aligned. And the wrap, the image wrap with a PNG image is only going to really work with a left aligned text and not a right aligned text. So here in this case, the text is right aligned, as you can see if you follow my mouse, and then the wrap that I get looks pretty bad, right? I mean, it's open in some areas and then closer in other areas. So if I make it left, then I get a very nice clean line, but if I make a right, then that doesn't happen. And similarly, I made this with another image, not the girl, but this hamburger here. On a left aligned text, it will work if you do it from the straight side and not the ragged side. So if I move this over to here, now I get a really nice rag, as you can see. It's very nice and clean. But if I keep it on the other side, it looks like as if a mouse ate it. So these text wraps you can't really do unless you have a text that is left aligned or justified, of course, that would also work. But right aligned texts, or well, left aligned text, but then you align it from let's see, you align it, you put the image on the straight side, and then you get the nice rag. Right aligned and you get a mess. And then if you put the image on the right hand side of the left aligned text, which is the side that is ragged, then you also get a very, very bad wrap. However, of course, it's not just PNG images. You could also be using something else. So let's put her away for now and make this left aligned again, and let's place another image. So let's play. I want to place an image that actually has straight corners. So for example, let's place this. I'm just going to make it like that. So let's say I want to place this right in the middle, and I want to make it Shift Control when you scale things, remember. And again, have it right in the middle, and I want this text to wrap, okay? Now what I would do is I would actually do this, hold on, and then hold on. Whoops, people, I'm having a oh, okay, right, now it's opening up. Okay, and I also need to open it up like this. However, what happens is that, let me see, yeah, and then I need to move the image according to how I wrapped it. So you can do this as well, and these can also give you very, very nice results. But again, go from the straight corner, not the other one, from the straight edge, because if you have a right aligned text and then you try to put an image inside it, then you will get this very ugly rag, which you don't want. And what about justified, you might ask? Yes, of course, but remember, always remember, justified text will give you white rivers. So we have a horrible one right here, really awful, and then we have another smaller one here, but we especially, of course, have it here where the text has become much narrower because of the text wrap. So justified text is something that usually will not work very well at all. Okay, so that actually brings us to the end of this tutorial, and I'm not going to go over it once again to remind you of all the things that we looked at, so that this has probably already been long enough and no reason to extend it even further. Now there will be one fourth one, a final one, in which I will talk about how to put this brochure together and how to make it fit for a presentation. And for that I will be using the other one that I had made, the Tekirefendi one, the one right here. And here I now have the full thing. I also have the back cover, and I will show you how to put all of that together and make it into a flipbook in the last tutorial of this series.